Hello, class. I just wanted to very quickly show you one possible implementation for your 6-2 coding assignment. Now, I have, uh, yes, I have downloaded it I'm working in the VDI. And now, I understand that some of you have had issues opening up these solutions in Visual Studio. And I'm working in the VDI, and it's the only common platform that we have. And so if you're using Visual Studio any place besides the VDI, I may not be able to help you because it could be any sort of problem specific to your desktop that I wouldn't be able to help you with. However, if you're having an issue and you're using the VDI, then we can work through it. I'm sure either I can help you or the help desk can help you. In fact, I called the help desk just today. I had been working on some code in the VDI pretty much all afternoon, and I was just ready to save it onto OneDrive and bring it over onto my local machine. And the VDI, I lost connectivity and I couldn't get it back. So I called them up. They helped me out. Didn't lose any of my code, but that was miraculous, I think. Those sorts of problems do happen, but the help desk is very good, very responsive. It's 24 hours a day. So anyway, I've downloaded it from Colt from the same, the link on the assignment description, and I've expanded it. So now I'm going to go into Visual Studio and say Open Project or Solution. So I'm going to navigate to my Downloads folder. Here it is. And I'm going to go down and find the solution file and open it. Now it's going to ask me to upgrade the .NET target. It says target framework not installed. Update the target to .NET framework 4.8 recommended. So just go ahead. If that's what's recommended, then I recommend doing it as well. And that's what I'm going to do. And that always works. So now you won't be able to run this, as you know, it's a debugging assignment, as well as you're being tasked with creating a class and a few things like that. So let's go right ahead. Let's take a look at the code first. So right away we see some problems here. The course, and that's the class that you are tasked with creating. Course class. So we don't have a course class, so this would not compile, and so obviously it wouldn't run. So notice when you do create the course class, it needs to have a name property, and you need to have a mutator. Now in my, I believe I call them accessors and mutators in my announcement for week 6, but if not, Uh, the best practice is so name is going to be a property of course, of the class course. Now, a property or a field of a class is a member level, a class member level variable. And it's by default, those are going to be private. Now, the best practice is to explicitly set it to private. You can either make a variable public or private. And so even though if you don't explicitly say that it's private, it just avoids confusion and it makes your code more maintainable. You can't really assume that every developer who comes in is going to have that knowledge fresh in his mind or her mind that, oh, well, that's private by default. They may not know. So it's best just to do everything like that explicitly. So name is going to be private. So the only way, even after you have an instance, an object instance of this class, you see if we had a course class, then choice would be an instance, and course one, for example, would be an instance of the class course, or it would be an object of the class. And so even though you have an object reference, if the property is private, you're going to need what are called accessors and mutators, one accessor, one mutator for each private property. Now, you would not need a mutator if it's a read-only property. If you don't want to give anybody any opportunity to ever change the value, then obviously it is not going to need a mutator. Other places, these are called getters and setters. A getter, a get would be an accessor. A set would be a mutator. So that's what we're going to write. And here they have, they've called it set name, but there's a little better way to do this in .NET, and I'm going to show you that. In fact, let's do that right now. Let's go ahead and I'm going to create a new class and new item. And we're going to add a class, and we're going to call it course. And by convention, a class name is going to start with an uppercase character. So here is our course class. Now I have some cheat sheets over here for myself as I do this because I came in here. That's what I was working on when the VDI crashed today. So we're going to, and by the way, I'm going to make this public. Class course. So we're going to create the property, the one property, private string name. So because that's declared at the course level, it's outside of any method. It's visible throughout the class. You don't have to pass this around within the class. Like if you call one method from another, um, you don't need to pass this around because it's going to be visible everywhere inside the class. And because it's private, as I mentioned, it will not be visible outside of the class. So if you have an object of type course, the only way you're going to be able to interact with this name is through the mutator and accessor. So now one thing I talk about in my announcement is our constructors. Now if I didn't explicitly code a constructor in here, when I compile this program, it's going to go ahead and add one. It's not going to be visible to you in the source code, but it's every time there's a build, it's going to add a default constructor, a parameterless constructor to the class. Now, the constructor is always going to have the same name as the class, so it's going to be called course. Now I'm going to go ahead and explicitly code two constructors here, and the reason I'm going to do that is to show you that two things. Number one, you can overload constructors. You can code additional ones with different signatures. And of course, a class doesn't have a return value at all because it simply returns an object of the class. But the constructor signature would be any parameters that it takes. And as I said, the default constructor takes no parameters. So if you do explicitly code a constructor that takes some parameters, then you're also going to be you're going to have to code your own default parameterless constructor. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to say public course, and then inside the constructor, and this is probably the same thing it would do if you didn't do this and the .NET compiler built this for you in the intermediate code. It's simply going to initialize the members, the properties. And now I'm going to make a parameterized constructor, and it's going to take a string and it's going to set the property name equal to whatever string I pass in. And notice this name, this means this instance of the class or this object. So this name equals name. That way it's clear that name here is the local variable that was passed in. Name here is the member variable because it's this name. Okay, so there are our constructors. And now, this is what I'm going to show you. Instead of making two different methods, with one called set name, one called get name, that's the old school way of doing it. Probably if you've had Java, that's the way you did it. there's a little cleaner way to do it here in C Sharp, so I think we should do that. And by the way, anything that's public by convention, you start it with an uppercase character. If it's private, you start it with a lowercase character. Now that's true for variables. That would be true for if this were a private method. So that just is another clue to somebody maintaining your code. And one thing I mentioned in the announcement is that it's very important to discipline yourself to adhere to these coding conventions because these are well-known conventions, and somebody maintaining your code is probably going to be aware of these conventions. And not only that, but someone consuming your objects, let's say your objects of your application are being used by people writing other applications at some point. Well, once that happens, that's going to make it very difficult for you to ever fix those violations of coding standards. So it's very important, and this is something that code reviews can help with, peer reviews. You know, you should check your own code over, of course, but get somebody else to have a look at it too, because unit testing is not going to pick this up. The compiler is not going to pick it up. It's not a syntax violation, but it is a coding standard violation, and it's just going to cause people to make errors when they try to use or maintain your code. So definitely something to know and adhere to, these coding standards. So we have this public string name. So inside here, we're going to do a get. And I don't know if you noticed, but I'm sure you couldn't have seen that, as you can't see my keyboard, but I just did a double tab. And maybe you'll see it here. Set. And it says tab to accept, excuse me. Okay. Now, one thing I also want to show you, and I'm going to change this a little bit. You could leave it exactly like this. For our purposes, this would be fine. But one of the reasons also that you want to code this way and get in the habit of just always doing this is because eventually you're probably going to want to validate data in the set. You know, somebody sends in a string, for example, and you're going to want to check for cross-site scripting potentially, or SQL injection, all sorts of things that, you know, if you're hooked up to a database. And so this is the place to do that. This is exactly the place to do that. And the same thing in the get. Somebody asks for some information through an accessor. Here you can check to see if that user has the level of privileges necessary to see that information. So let's just go ahead and put that very comment in here. So here we could check to see that the user actually has access to the information. This is very important. There are lots of use cases for this. Here, so here we could check to see that something adheres to certain rules or that it doesn't pose a security threat. So that's the real power of this kind of approach. It really sets you up for being able to do a lot of add a lot of security and validation in the future that would require no real recoding. You don't have to change your design or anything. You just add some code right there in the accessors and mutators. It's all designed for that sort of thing. Okay, and now the other thing that we need in here, it says to do an override of the toString method. And I'll show you how I used that in a moment. Okay, it did all that a little fast. Okay, so we're going to, and that's what you're supposed to have this output. So when you call toString on an object of this class, it's just going to give you the name of the course. Okay, so that should be that. So now let's look at our code again here. So now this is all cleared up. But now remember, I was telling you I didn't think we should do it this way because of the cool new way to do it with C#. So all we have to do is course.name, and remember name is uppercase here because it's the public face of the property name. The property itself starts with a lowercase n. And then we just code it up as if it were a direct assignment. So it doesn't even look like you're calling a mutator or an accessor. It just looks like an assignment or a direct read of a property. So to me, that's a little cleaner approach. But even though it looks like a direct assignment, it's going to go through any validation rules that you have. Anything that you code inside your mutator, it's going to accomplish all of that, even though it just looks like a direct assignment. It is not. So I'm going to do all that. I have a tiny little keyboard on my notebook computer that is difficult to work with. Oh, and I'm going to show you too how we're going to test the parameterized constructor. So we won't call this mutator on all of these. I'm going to go ahead and code them all, and then I'm going to comment a couple of them out and send that in through the constructor. So when you do that, it just uses a different constructor. Okay, so now I'm going to comment out this call to the mutator for course 3 and course 6, and then in course 3 and course 6 I'm going to send that string in through the constructor. Okay, so we'll see in a moment how that worked out. And let's see, what else do I need to do here? Okay. Now that you see, and that was the plan all along, apparently, was to make choice an instance of an object, not a string. But here you see they were trying to add an object to a combo box. No, I don't think that would work unless there's an explicit call to toString on here. So let's see how that works. No, it didn't like it. I don't see any error messages here, but let's just do this. We can either call the toString, and remember toString returns the name, or we can use our accessor. So let's mix it up. Let's do some of them with toString, some of them with name. So in the end, oh, well, look, here they are. Okay. So they should all be the same. Actually, it looks like it was working. Let's try this though. Yeah, if you want, it's pretty late Saturday night. So if you want to experiment with that, help yourself just to see if there's an implicit call in a situation like this to toString. It appears that there might have been something else may have gone wrong before, but let's. This will definitely work. And here we go. Here's the okay, now we still have a problem down here because I believe it's trying to put an object. Yes, it is. Now this is going to be a pretty easy fix. Let me go ahead and kill this. But you see, unable to cast object of type system string to a course. So that is not going to work. Okay, so all we really need to do is get rid of the attempt to make this a cast and just make this an instance, of course. Then we'll send in, here's one more thing. Remember this. You must remember this. Choice is a member variable. So, but course, non-irrevocable course. So how did I do that? New. You need to make that a new course. And selected item, even though we think it's a string, it's not really being recognized as such, so we need to call toString on that. So we need to call toString on the combo box selected item. Even though we put a string in it, that's what we have to do. Now remember, here we have to either call name or toString to put that in the list box because it wants a string. Okay, so let's see what we got now. Okay, let's pick that. There it is. Pick 315. 330. Now let's try to pick 201 again. And guess what? It lets us do it. 201 again. So in other words, we don't have any of those rules that we were enforcing before. Not only that, but we've noticed we've just selected 4 classes, whereas we could only select 3 before. So I'm not sure, to be honest, if that is part of the requirement, but it's a fairly easy thing to do. I'll show you how I did that. So to check to see if you've already picked it, it's, remember before I showed you how to create a dictionary, key value dictionary to keep up with which courses you had registered for, but you already have a list box that's keeping all of that for you. So all you got to do is check the list box. And so I'm just gonna hope I can do this. Just gonna copy this. And see if I can paste it in here. And here we go. So instead of just going right ahead and adding it to the list box, oh, and I've got this registration number here, so I need to do one more thing. Up here, I need a couple more member variables. I don't know if you recall, but I mentioned in a clarification announcement last week that if you don't want to hard code what these are called magic numbers. If you just have numbers hard coded into logic throughout your program, and nobody really knows what those numbers represent or why it's important that you can't exceed 3, or I think it was 9 in the instance last week, but you want to put those in some sort of a descriptively named constant, and this makes it a constant, so nobody can ever change. I mean, the developer could change it at design time, but at runtime, nobody can change the value of this constant. So it's always going to be 3. And then we've got a registration number here. So let's go back down here, and all of those errors should be gone. So here I'm going to check as soon as we attempt to add something to the list box. I'm going to check the list box first and see if it's already there. If it is, I'm just going to pop up a dialog that informs the user that they're already registered for the course. Else, so if it's not there, then I'm going to check registration number, and if it's greater than or equal to 3, because there could have been a glitch. Maybe one time this didn't work for some reason, and it got bumped up to 4, and if you didn't, so if it's equal to 3 or if it's even greater than 3, definitely you don't want to let them register for more. But this is just an extra safeguard for something totally unexpected that, as you know, can happen. Um, so if they've already reached their maximum number of allowable registrations, I'm just popping up a message box to that effect. You have registered for the maximum number of courses. Oh, look what I did. Look what I did. I used a magic number after all. This max registrations. And when you make something a constant, it becomes static. And so you don't use this, even though it's up there at the level of the class, and you didn't explicitly mark it static. It becomes static. So that's a good lesson that we had to put that in after the fact. So that should all work. So if the registration number, which gets bumped up every time you successfully do add something to the list box, it bumps up the registration number. And so once it hits this value of 3, and so that way, if you didn't have a constant here, odds are that there would, as this code ages, as people have maintained it and made modifications, somebody is bound to eventually use check that registration value someplace else, and so then you end up with multiple hard-coded magic numbers in there, and pretty soon your code is getting to be unmaintainable, and somebody comes in and they have no idea what that 3 represents, and how many places people are checking it, and does the 3 here, is it the same 3 that you see in another place where they're checking a number? You would have no way really to know, unless you yourself had coded all of it. And after a while, in the life cycle of an application, that becomes very unlikely. So best to just start right out putting something like this in a constant. And then, eventually that makes it easy if, let's say that, you get a database behind this or something, and so somebody's putting values like that into the database, and you're just grabbing them and populating your variables at runtime, and so you don't have to change this. All you change is where you get that number, but this variable can stay in place where it is. So let's run this and see what happens. So I hope this helps you with your implementation, and if not, get in touch. I'm sure I can add some more clarification. So we picked 270. Let's pick 201. Now let's pick 270 again. And so we got a message box. You have already registered for this course. Click that. Pick 328. Now let's pick just anything that we haven't picked, or even if we have. you've registered for the maximum number of courses. Let's pick something we didn't, that we did pick already. So you've already registered for this course. So it's going to tell you that first. And then if you keep fooling around and you actually do pick something that you haven't registered for, then it'll tell you that you've exceeded. You've reached the maximum. So that's it. That's relatively simple functionality, but I think you probably learned a lot. Let's just go over some of this. So we've got at the member level up here, the class level, we've got choice. And by the way, I don't see where we're ever using that, but I'll leave that to you. If you can't find it being used anywhere and you want to get rid of it, that's fine. Best practice dictates that you would do that. Okay, here's our constant. And remember, that's going to be, even though it's at the member level, if it's a constant, it's going to be static, so you would not use this to find it. Registration number, you do use this. It's not static. And then we can either send because we created a parameterized constructor. Now, if you don't do that, of course, you won't have that, and that's strictly up to you. I just did it to further illustrate how constructors work. You could just use your mutators. And then I'll leave this as an exercise to you if you want to if you want to not put a call to the name accessor or the toString, and see if that implicitly calls toString and puts the string in the combo box. Help yourself. It's a little late. I'm not going to do that tonight, but we know this works. And then here's the button click, and we have some logic in here to put back in place some of those business rules that we had in 5. I think it was 5-2. So anyway, that's all I wanted to show you tonight. And thank you, and good luck on the implementation.